It is Thursday, March 26th, and this is today's forecast. So we have an interesting one today because we have a severe threat for tonight that might kind of go into tomorrow, but we're not quite sure yet where it's going because it's a really complicated system. But we're going to go ahead and go through everything about today and see what could be building into this tonight. So starting out with our temperature in the morning hours, we are seeing, the temps that are really nice, and they are across the country kind of in the 50s, but there's a cold front that looks like it's building, and we could see on the, the wet northwest side of that, we're seeing temperatures in the 30s and 40s, and then in the morning, we're going to see really nice temperatures across much of Texas and the south, but we're seeing 40s across much of the Midwest. So looking at the 15Z, we are seeing, those 50s and those upper 40s start to kind of build in. So, those late morning hours, right around lunchtime too, we're going to see the 50s and maybe heading up towards 60 as we get into the day. And then that's going to be in the 40s and 30s the further northeast you get. So we're seeing really nice temperatures for this time of year, and it's something that we could all appreciate, but it's building into something that's going to cause a really big severe threat potentially either tonight or tomorrow. So this is kind of the big turning point of the day. So we're seeing this 18Z, and just look at it. You could see there's a pocket of extremely warm air that comes from two directions. There are two pockets. One comes from Mexico, up through the very west part of Texas and hooks into the central Oklahoma area. They're having temperatures in the upper 80s. And then you have the one coming from Florida. And what that is doing in the middle is kind of pinching Arkansas. So we're going to see that potential later on today, but notice where that temperature is the hottest at and the way it hooks. We're going to see that tonight as that heat is still there. It's the warmest temperature, so it's going to take the longest to cool down. We're going to see how that affects the system building with the energy. So the 21Z, we can see here that those 80s spread. Now we still have that little gap that's coming right down the Mississippi River. And you can see now that we have 90-degree temperatures entering the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. It will be the hottest it's been all year there so far. So we also see, look at kind of where that little wisp heads out over West Virginia and cuts back down. So we're seeing that this is kind of all led by the wind. And you can see there's a dip there in Missouri and Arkansas. It's not really a big one in temperature, but it's something that we need to keep an eye on with these as energy flows in. We need to watch where those 90s are being kind of pushed in, because currently at this time it's going to be 77 in Miami. It's going to be 90 in Oklahoma. That's going to be a key factor in building storms for tonight. So we start getting in towards the evening hours, and as I said before, we can see that Florida one kind of just goes away. But we still see, as it starts to cool down a little more, we start to see all the temperatures stay in the upper 80s across into Oklahoma. But look, you could see it's that same shape that is continuing there. So there's a line that goes from the very west tip of Texas all the way up into Kansas. So that's going to be really important, as you could even see those 50s in parts of, where Arizona and New Mexico area is. You can see there's a line that goes up through Colorado. That is going to be really important over the night hours as we see where storms are going to develop. Both those factors are going to play a big role in how this storm system develops. So we're getting into the late PM hours here, and we could see there's still extremely warm temperatures. We're in the 50s across much of the country, but you can see right there where all that red is, we have 70s, and we have 80s in a few spots, but the key thing is it's still in the upper 70s, and this is at a point where it's going to be dark. So we will see this trend here as we go throughout the rest of the forecast, what's going to be occurring with this warming. And here is the categorical for today. So we are seeing with this that there is a slight chance from the 12Z, so the morning hours of Thursday, into the 12Z morning hours of Friday. So we're seeing we could just say this 9 a.m., let's just say. So, let 9 a.m. at the latest. So we will put it at 6 to 9, let's just say. So between those two times, those 24 hours, we're going to see that slight chance across Kansas into Missouri. And then we're going to see thunderstorms stretch all the way into parts of Pennsylvania and into even Maryland. So, looking at this, the marginal threat is right around the slight. But we have to pay attention to this because it's weird once you see where the energy is going, but it makes sense on where this energy is pushing all of this. So we're about to get into where all this is going to be. So we're not going to read through the whole discussion, but here is the image of it. You could stop it now and read it all if you want, or you can go to the SPC's website. But basically, an overview of it, there is a slight risk of severe thunderstorms from southeast Kansas into west central Missouri. So thunderstorms capable of producing large hail are expected Thursday night from southeast and east central Kansas into the southwest and west central Missouri. So we can expect that's where all this is going to be at. We have some potential for some very large hail. It's a very thermodynamic environment, and there is a lot of shear going into this. So a big thing is, though, with a lot of hail, we see that chance of the tornadoes to go up. So we will look at here what potentially the tornado threat could be. But once again, the energy is all weird, and that's what's going to be affecting us tomorrow, is this energy is going to keep gaining all night. So not too much to see on the precipitation-wise at the 12Z time. We still have that system way off coast now that is just trying to continue to get pushed through. And then just some kind of snow in some places with altitude. But we'll see how that low is going to drag. You can kind of see actually that 570 level right below the L there. That is really, if you look at the temperature comparison, that is what's bringing all of that heat into the northern part of Oklahoma. So we see some rain kind of develop across parts of Missouri and right along Illinois. We right now, or as of last night, whenever the scan was taken, nothing too bad looking out of it right now, but note it is rain, so we could see a thunderstorm or two in there. So looking at this, we have rain across central and north Illinois moving, and some of that looks like it is going to be some heavier rain, so we could expect, a potential for some heavier storms to build if one or two will take off. So we do see this rain start to develop and start pushing into Indiana and Ohio. It could be in the form of thunderstorms. Looking at it, this scan was taken from last night, so it is something that, it could be an older one that they have new scans on, but we could be seeing some of these as severe, so just stay tuned to your forecasts on your local news stations because they're going to have the most accurate for your area. Since we're doing the whole nation at once, we can't get down to the specifics. So here's where we start developing the thunderstorms, is at the, kind of the after dinner time hours. We have them entering into the Ohio area, and they are kind of pushing through. It looks like almost that there is potentially a squall line that could be moving through at the 552 pressure level. Right there, so we could see something, develop out of that, but it looks like from this scan, at least from the NAM scan, it is going to be, just some heavier rain and some other stuff that's going to be moving through. It could be some thunderstorms, but once again, it's really going to be developing with this energy, so it's going to depend on where the energy is at the right time, and we will look at that here coming up. So here is where we could see on the NAM scan from yesterday where the storms develop. So this is at around the 9 p.m. time. So we are seeing in a lot of places, we have those yellows start to break in. As we look down at the little legend that's showing, a lot higher fall rate. So we could look and see thunderstorms now in eastern Ohio and in western Pennsylvania. So that is where we are seeing those thunderstorms on that categorical that are coming in is due to this. Once again, that is from today morning hours into tomorrow morning hours. So we have to note this system is something that is going to be developing much overnight. So we could note where that low pressure is at, and then that little speck of green over Oklahoma. Now, I have an opinion on this that we will check into in a second, but something about this seems weird. So quickly looking over all the dew points and stuff, we see higher dew points throughout the whole day today, but also you can note in the morning hours here we have that punch of those 60s that go up into eastern Oklahoma. That's going to be leading some of that warmth that we're going to see being kind of dragged through, and then there's that drier air behind it. But note, it looks like you would think normally that that whole system would just go to the east throughout the day. But I want you to pay attention to that very west part where it kind of kinks in from Kansas down to the west part of Texas. Watch how that fills in over these next few hours. So rather than going from west to east, we are seeing this kind of fill east to west. And that's got to do with some of the warmth, but you have to pay attention to look at where the dry air is at in the west part of Texas, where that most moist air is in central Texas. There's very little 50 dew points through there. So we're seeing this being pinched together, and that's going to create some of this energy. As we keep looking through this, we'll see that start to develop into a dry line. So here is where the rest of that is filling in. We do see some 70s pop up right in the very southern part of Oklahoma into Texas. Watch where that darkest and then purple goes with this as it starts to build a dry line, because we see we already have a line from Texas, but we're about to see that connection all the way up to Kansas as we start getting later and later into the day. We see the rapid spread of those 70s into Oklahoma, and that is what is giving us the big energy time that we are going to see here. So the time of this is 21Z. So we are looking, this is, late afternoon dinner time. We are seeing, it's far north of it in the Missouri is where those 60s went, and now we have 70s. So we have a pocket of really moist air starting to build in, and then as you look, you see those upper 40s kind of go into the Texas panhandle. That's actually building a dry slot, if you could see it right there. It's right at where the very southern west tip of Oklahoma and Texas are at. That is a kind of dry slot that is building right along that line. And in this next scan or two, we're going to see this line completely develop, and that is going to allow some of these big storms to develop. So looking at this last scan, we see that, that 70s reach into kind of that arc that matches the arc of the dry line across portions of Oklahoma, and we see it kind of skip over central Oklahoma, and we see it kind of go right around it. So note that curvature, because that is going to be a key curvature we are going to see, because that dew point actually is giving us a hint at where the energy is at most. So we also see that line that, as I said before, it's not perfectly straight, but it goes from Kansas clear down into Texas, and there's a little bit of a kink into it, but we're going to see how that is affecting energy flow and where that's pinching it, because that's going to, according to our scans, that's developing energy, just not physical storms. So here's where it gets interesting. So we have our surface-based cape here. So this is the morning hours. We see a little bit into Texas and stuff, but according to our scans on the general precip, it's nothing. So we're not developing anything. This is just energy that's going through it. And I want to throw the idea of the general precip out the window for a minute. So imagine this, we could see some development of storms, some quick showers. Now, you have to note these models are hours apart, so these storms could pop up in between. So I want to eliminate the general precip from our minds right now and focus on what the energy could cause, because with the energy and the dew points and everything, this is going to allow maybe some quick supercells even. We could even see those. But the bigger threat is what's going to be pushing north. That's going to be occurring in the overnight hours. So we start to see some of that blue start to build into Texas, and that's all energy. But if we're thinking about it in the form of storms, we're going to see a quick shower or two pop up. So we're going to start investigating this as a potential of rain showers and if they're building into thunderstorms. But we have to keep in mind too, what everything is pointing towards is more of a potential energy. It's not kinetic yet. It is all potential. It's building in the atmosphere, and then it has to all kind of push down and then develop. So we have to see what this is doing. So our lunchtime to afternoon scan is something that we're seeing that is a little bit frightening in the Cape standpoint, because we see an explosion of Cape that goes all the way up into the 3000s from, the bigger centers of it are in central Texas and then right along the line of Oklahoma and Texas right there. But the northern part of Texas is where we're going to have the worst of this, at least Cape-wise. So according to our whole thing, there were no storms developing down in this region due to, some temperature changes and stuff. We have to know back where we had those temperatures, that's in the dew point, that's whenever this was at its highest. So we have to note with that too, this is daytime heating that's allowing these storms. So one of two options, we could either see this as potential energy, or we could see some big time supercells that are popping out of this. But it's looking like this is potential energy. So we see, this big time 4,000 kilojoules of this crazy amount of CAPE. I can't believe how much there is right here. I mean, this is stuff you see in big time storms during the summer, but it's something that we're going to have to look at because, the SPC and the NWS are agreeing on this, that this is actually potential energy. That threat was further north. So what's happening across Texas into Oklahoma isn't actually happening at the ground level, or there must be these massive storms starting to build, but there's no rainfall yet. So if we're keeping the general precip in there, we're going to agree with the fact that, it's all going to stay and it's all going to be, the same with this. So it's going to just stay normal and it's going to build and build and build, and then it's just going to drop all at once. So looking at the CAPE for, right before we're looking at, right before the kind of nighttime hours, right before sunset, we are seeing, according to this, even more explosion in, 4,500 into, central and, actually just central Oklahoma. But we still see that across Texas. And something that we see there is all of that perfectly matches where that heating is at and where that, dew point and that dry line is. So we're seeing that, and we're seeing that start to push a little bit further northeast. So, this is a fascinating thing. So it's going to be a very severe event when this all puts down. But, as the NWS and SPC are agreeing with it, it's just, that's all developing, and, maybe we could see some really quick, big thunderstorms. But maybe it's just too hot at that time there that we aren't seeing that stuff there that's pushing north. This is all developing still, and it's something that's going to be a big event whenever it happens. Then we see kind of a die-off almost in some of that energy, but we still see it start to push north, but we start to see some of that start to push west too, right to that dry line. So it's really confusing right now with the surface-based CAPE, but looking at, what's going to be happening with the unstable and then the SIGTOR and the supercell composite, it's something that, we're going to see this development that will either happen, or it could be crazy and it could just, go north and we could see something completely different later in the day. Looking at our most unstable CAPE, we are seeing, at the 12Z time, we start seeing some of that pushing into Missouri and everything. So we're just going to quickly flip through some of these because, this energy is so weird, and we're seeing stuff that, we don't see normally, and we're going to see it start to build. We also have it into Texas, so it's into Arkansas also. So we're seeing that potential development that could be occurring. So we also see it, building at the 15Z into Oklahoma, but we still do have the thunderstorms in the Missouri and Arkansas. But we look at the south part of Texas, it still continues through there. And this is where it starts building with the most unstable, is the southeast part of Oklahoma first. And really, we're seeing that, match with what the National Weather Service is saying. So who knows what the normal CAPE is saying, but the unstable CAPE is where we're seeing some of this bigger stuff. And then the explosion at 21Z, we see it start to file back in, and we see all of this. So, who knows what could be happening in there. It's something that, it could be very big, but according to everybody else, it's not apparently going to build that much. And, the unstable CAPE and the normal CAPE, we see that match. That doesn't happen very often, but it's something that is there. So we're going to have to check and see, especially through these, as we look at the 3Z, it is a lot of energy pushing right in actually to the northern part, to the area of, what to watch. So we're going to have to look and see. It's going to be very exciting to see, what could happen with this and where is it going. Looking at the supercell comp, we're not seeing, too much that's impressive in the morning, but let's go ahead and look at the 15Z. We see it start to build into the southeast part of Oklahoma, and that's going to be where we're going to see some of those rain showers developing into the northeast later on today. But we see, finally at 18Z, we see these little pockets start to pop up, and it looks like that could be our individual supercells right there. We could see some of this convection occur during the day, and into the very northeast part of Arkansas right there is where we have some of these individual supercells that could be popping up. And then we see an explosion in the parts of Illinois and Kentucky as we get into the later afternoon hours. But we also have those pockets starting to fill in to Missouri too. And then finally we start to see this match at, right around the late afternoon hours. We start to see it start to match the temperatures, start to match what we're talking about with everything else. And finally we start to see overnight, we see this supercell composite that is very in the mid-levels right in Oklahoma, right where we're seeing these crazy Cape values. We are seeing these. So it's something that we have to pay close attention to, I think, because it's something that could affect everybody later on in the day. And finally, the SIGTOR. We are looking at this because the system is developing, and where could we see the most tornadoes, the best chance of them at least. So at the 12Z, very small chance in the southeast Oklahoma. We look at 15Z, we see that same kind of situation. Then the 18Z, we start seeing these pockets developing again where it matches the supercell composition, where these individual supercells could have the most. But once again, these numbers are just 1 to 2, so we're not seeing these massive numbers like 6, 7, 8, where we could see, there's definitely going to be a tornado in here. There is a chance, and all the stuff is matching up today due to that dry line and the temperatures and everything, that we could see some quick pop-up development that will, occur, that we could see, especially in that slight range where all of this is heading towards. You have to note, too, this all seems crazy at its current location, but where is it heading towards? It's heading towards where they think the most is going to be developing. So we have to watch that part because it's going to be where, in my opinion, this is going to end up developing. So with the 21Z, we see it in East Oklahoma, up in the Missouri, and then we see that separation kind of in two different systems. And this is where we start getting into the 2.5 and 3 range because, once again, this is where this energy is pushing it towards. We look at, the late afternoon hours, and we have a boom across Arkansas, and right in the middle of central Oklahoma City, there is a higher hit there, so we could see some thunderstorms that kind of develop through there. And that's something else too that we're going to have to look at is, are we throwing this out the window? Because if the SIGTOR is that high, maybe we do end up with a severe chance through there, but we have to know where that energy is all kind of pushing towards. And at the, right at dinner time, and this is where we are seeing dinner time into the late evening times, we are seeing the highest chance at 4.5 into 5 right across West Oklahoma. So while we're looking at all this, we have to kind of scratch the idea of what the general precip is doing, because according to everything else, and including what the NWS is saying, according to this, every piece of information from the NAM model is showing a huge system developing across West Oklahoma. So we're going to have to look and see all day what actually is occurring with this. But if the models are right, and including the HRRR, it is showing the same thing. If these two models are right, overnight tonight is going to be a big storm system moving through there. And we didn't get into it because we run out of time, but the helicity model supports this also. And there's no doubt going to be something occurring today, whether it's in that slight zone or it could be into Oklahoma, where this event happens. And it's something that's going to be going on overnight tonight. So nocturnal events are some of the most dangerous. So always just be prepared for that. Well, hopefully we can get this all figured out. We had some software issues anyways with recording this today, so we had to drop a few of them. And the vocals were all messed up too, about narration and everything. So hopefully tomorrow we get into a little bit better forecast. But yeah, so thank you all again, and join us tomorrow for hopefully a at least common agreement on a forecast.